As we already know, Michael Bloomberg has been buying his way into this primary election. But during the debate tonight, he actually accidentally almost told us someone else he's been buying. Let's see.
All of the new Democrats that came in, put Nancy Pelosi in charge, and gave the Congress the ability to control this president, I got them. Number two, when you
oh, I got them. No, those people, I got them there. I got them on payroll.
That was maybe the most appropriate and most disastrous Freudian slip of all time. I bought them, he was gonna say. Because he most certainly did.
And sometimes he says it out loud. I just have to, I can't, we covered this on the main show today, and just great producing by Jayar, because he sat through that whole 45-minute speech.
49 minutes and 10 seconds.
49, I'm so sorry.
And 10 seconds.
Bloomberg speech to Goldman Sachs in 2016, and he said this to them: Congress is really something. You just have to have them on your side if you want to accomplish major things. And the ways you get Congress to work for you is the ways you deal with your family. You bribe them, he told event attendees. You say to your kid to clean your room or you don't get your allowance. That's a bribe. I'm sorry, he said when the audience murmured. And he talked about, I think we need a president with executive experience who will know how to do that. So he was talking about bribing in positive terms.
Well, I've been begging Democrats to talk about bribery, and nobody would do it. And now it has come up in the most ironic way possible. It has come up from a candidate who almost all of the establishment has pinned their main hopes on, and he's talking about bribing politicians in a positive way. He's like, now remember Goldman Sachs? He's talking to Goldman Sachs. He didn't have to repeat it, they all already knew. Remember Goldman Sachs? What you do with politicians is you bribe them. And now, just like Trump, Bloomberg comes in and goes, well, you know what, I'm annoyed by bribing them. I'll just do it myself. I'll just bribe the whole country, okay? And in the midst of a debate about this, he talks about how he's got so much support from Democratic politicians that he bought, I mean supported. He didn't even say supported. What he said was, you saw it right there, was not much of a recovery.
Well, he is, as I've been saying over and over, he's an old school paternalist. So he really just thinks these things. He thinks he knows best. He wants to rule over people. The soda ban is like a micro version of that, where he wants to tell you what you can and cannot drink. He thinks that he can violate your constitutional rights for the greater good, so he can push black and brown kids up against the wall, and if they don't have a gun on them, they have it at home, because I know best. I oversee everyone. I'm like Sauron in the Eye. John needs to be here to get that reference. But
no, I got it.
No, okay, sure. So
I didn't.
But that's what's terrifying about him, and why I think he's not really much better than Trump in many ways, is because he is someone who has no problem violating your constitutional rights, and really saying bribes are a good thing. Violating the law, bribery is illegal, even though we've pretty much legalized it, but saying it is, quid pro quo corruption is illegal. So he has no problem doing so, because he's the most arrogant dude in the world. He's so wealthy that he thinks he's above consequences. That's why he can stand there on the stage and not say anything, because he knows he can just throw $100 million into Super Tuesday states and maybe he'll be okay. He reeks of entitlement, and that comes across in every story that crops up about him.
Every time he gets hung up, all he's do is say, hey, can we go to commercial break? Because I got something that I can respond to this if we go to commercial.
Because the thing that you're gonna see in commercial break, it was molded by my consultants. And so I didn't have to sit here and answer your annoying questions. I paid for a better message that it doesn't really come from me, but was concocted with even more money. So look, these debates are the worst thing that could happen to Mike Bloomberg. He plummeted after the last debate, because it's one thing when you see a well-produced ad that shows him in a really favorable light. It's another thing when you see Daddy Warbucks in person. And when Elizabeth Warren is criticizing him and he gives that arrogant eye roll, like, I do declare, people aren't normally allowed to criticize me, Lizzie. Okay.
He totally gave somebody eye rolls.
Yeah, he does a lot of arrogant eye rolls. And so, but let's talk about the core issue. Unfortunately, he's right in that Goldman Sachs speech, and he was right when he said he bought those politicians. Now, you're not allowed to say that in polite company. Believe me, nobody knows that better than I do. Because you know what'll happen next is that the media will attack you. It's not just the Democrats who are like, oh, how dare you, right? And they'll hide behind identity too. Are you saying that fill in the blank, the Latino, whatever, Asian woman, it was bought by Mike Bloomberg? You're insulting the Latino, the Asian, blah, 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 right? Yeah. That's their biggest trick for no, when he gave me millions of dollars and then I did exactly what he asked me to do and I endorsed him, I wasn't bought, it wasn't a bribe, even though he actually literally just said that. You're insulting me and everyone else in the cocktail circuit. Sorry if I'm insulting you, but I don't really care because it is a bribe. He is right, and he did buy you.
I know we compare Bloomberg to Trump a lot, but the thing is, it's not unfair because a lot of times the things they said, the way that the Buttigieg comparison comes to the cadence and the words that he does with Obama, it's actually very similar. So again, he elaborated on the whole thing about bribing Congress, and again, those tapes to Goldman Sachs. And so he said we need an executive in there, like another business guy. How many times did Trump say that? And Trump supporters say we need a businessman in office so we can run this country like a business. But Bloomberg pointed out that business guys bribe and buy politicians so they can have them do what they want them to do. We talked about it on the main show, so Emma was on there with me, and I made the comparison that Trump was on the debate stage in the last cycle, and he said, I bought all these guys up here. I'm a businessman, I know how this works. It's the same thing Bloomberg said in this private meeting. He just, he doesn't realize that everything he says in these meetings gets recorded and eventually will come back out. And he was also frustrated that Obama was the kind of president that wouldn't do it enough.
Yes, but the difference is that Trump was coming at it from the drain the swamp narrative and saying, look how screwy this is. I'll actually represent you. Bloomberg sees it as a gold star or something that he's actually achieved, something that should be strived for to be buying these politicians. We're talking about someone who could, it's such a grave threat that a right-wing oligarch could take over the only semblance of a left party that we have in this country when we have a wannabe fascist in the White House right now. That is one of the gravest threats that this whatever's left of this democracy could ever face. And right now we're toying with the idea of putting Bloomberg in, brokered convention or not, as the Democratic nominee. And I think that's frightening because then that ends the left and this makes us kind of a failed state, a failed empire.
Well, if Bloomberg was here, he'd give you the snooty eye roll. Oh, I do declare. Okay. At one point, when they asked him what he would do about it, he said, I forget what the issue was. I'd make a fuss about it. Well, I do declare, would you? You'd make a fuss.
Yeah, you and the intelligentsia.
Anyway, but look, again, to the core issue here, and what Jayar said triggered a realization with me. What do Democrats always do? They run Republican light people. They try to emulate Republicans. Does it ever work? No. Ask Claire McCaskill, ask Joe Donnelly. When you run as Republican light, the people decide that they'd rather vote for the person who's the actual Republican. And so what is Bloomberg? Bloomberg is the same idea, but he's running as Trump light. So hey, Trump won, a Democratic Party has a great idea. Why don't we emulate Trump? Well, then they'll vote for Trump because you're saying Trump is the right model. We just have a Xerox version of it, a poor photocopy of Trump. You're actually reinforcing the frame that Trump is the correct answer. Disastrous idea, a surefire way to lose.
Yeah, and I don't know if you meant to do it, but I echoed his framing on the stop and frisk thing with the Xerox copy, right?
Yeah. Right. I was wondering if you meant that.
Yeah, but
yeah, of course
it works.
Yes, of course. Many layers to Cenk's commentary. He's part of the intelligentsia. But you have all these clips of him talking down about how anyone could do a farmer's job, and how I keep referencing that, but he said, "Oh, the intelligentsia who could make it into this room. We understand trans issues, but try to market that to the middle of the country and they won't understand a man in a dress." Just play that over. Trump needs to just go on the stage with him if he was the nominee and just say soda ban and walk out. Because like his politics of paternalism and pro-Wall Street and pro-corruption, it's like the worst, most toxic mix. And in a general election, your money means nothing because everyone gets free media. So the one advantage that he has isn't even an advantage in a general election. Hillary Clinton had more money than Donald Trump and she still lost, and every perceived advantage. Why are we treating this as if this is some sort of big get?
But last thing on this is, that really goes to show you how absurdly biased the mainstream media is. What Emma said right there is just nearly indisputable. And yet the media looks at him and goes, oh, a snooty elitist billionaire talking down to people, arguing against the middle of the country, farmers, all the things that that they said you had to elevate, right, their whole lives. This guy who looks down on everyone else and wants to buy the system. We think that voters will really like that guy. And what does that tell you about the media? They look at Bernie Sanders fighting for the average guy and trying to get them health care, higher wages, etc. And they're like, oh, nobody would like him. Oh, a billionaire who looks down on everyone. Oh, I bet everybody likes him. Gives you a sense of the frame of mind of the mainstream media in this country, and it's devastating. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.